District of Delaware after being charged in a multi-year investigation. David Spunt has the latest from Wilmington, Delaware.
It appears this will head toward trial. This is just one piece of the overall puzzle involving Hunter Biden investigations. This specifically deals with the purchase and possession of a gun 5 years ago in the fall of 2018. This was a quick arraignment. Now, Hunter appeared before a magistrate judge. These conditions of release. He has to seek employment. He has to communicate all international travel plans. He cannot possess a firearm. He cannot use alcohol or drugs. All medications must be prescribed. He must get drug tested randomly, and he must participate in substance abuse counseling.
Texas Representative Henry Cuellar was carjacked by 3 armed attackers late Monday night in Washington, D.C. Texas Congressman Tony Gonzalez discusses his concerns about safety.
We're all concerned. I mean, I think Americans do not feel safe, whether that's in D.C., whether that's in Washington, certainly in Eagle Pass along the border.
A wave of looting has spread across the country, with mobs of people smashing windows and emptying stores with little or no resistance. One store that was especially hard hit was Lululemon in Philadelphia. But Fox News contributor Douglas Murray says the retailer brought this on itself.
Lululemon I saw in this city being robbed right in front of me, and I asked the store staff why they couldn't do anything, and they said that we were told not to. We're told not to confront shoplifters. A few months later, in Atlanta, 2 female employees at Lululemon called the police because there were people robbing the store for the 10th time that month. And what happened? Lululemon fired the 2 female employees for calling the police. So when Lululemon the other night in Philadelphia was ransacked and looted, frankly, it's companies like that that bring it upon themselves.
A political analyst with deep California roots believes Governor Gavin Newsom's selection to replace the late Senator Dianne Feinstein is all about identity politics. Chad Groening has more.
Newsom didn't waste any time in fulfilling his promise to name a black female as Feinstein's successor, and LaPonza Butler, a Democratic strategist and advisor to Kamala Harris's 2020 presidential campaign, is also a lesbian, so she has checked off all of the usual Democrat boxes. Craig Huey is a speaker and author of 4 books who was born in California and involved in the state's politics for over 30 years. He says Butler is extremely radical.
She's going to be Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren on steroids. She's going to be the next generation of Obama, of a community organizer in power, knowing how to mobilize people and how to be able to utilize the power of the bureaucracy to do her bidding. It's not a pretty scene, and for Gavin Newsom, it's the best choice he could have made.
Huey says Butler will lay waste to the 2024 Democratic primary.
Basically what has happened is that they now are left in the dust, and soon-to-be Senator Butler is going to have the money, the power, the name recognition, the organization of the unions in California and ballot harvesting to be able to win her race no matter what Lee, Porter, and Schiff do.
I'm Chad Groening.
And finally, another state governor is asking for federal help to deal with a large number of migrants being sent to his state.
Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker sent a letter to President Biden saying 15,000 migrants have been sent to his state, but that the federal government has not matched the state aid they've been providing to the migrants. Pritzker, like Governor Hochul of New York, asked for the migrants to be given temporary work authorization. Nearly 500,000 Venezuelan migrants who arrived before the end of July have been given 18 months of work authorization. But the White House says broadly allowing asylum seekers to apply for work before they've been here for 6 months is up to Congress. A White House spokesman said in a statement after hearing about Pritzker's letter that it's congressional Republicans who've blocked immigration reform. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
For American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jessica Peck, host of the Dr. Nurse Mama radio show, beginning daily October 16th on AFR. I'll serve as your expert guide to engage, equip, encourage, and empower you to navigate life's toughest issues with your family. The show begins October 16th, and I can hardly wait to prescribe hope for healthy families. I'll see you there.
we inform.
Religious freedom is about people of faith being able to live out their faith, live out their convictions, no matter where they are.
We equip.
Sacred honor is the courage to speak truth, to live out your free speech.
We also rejoice in our sufferings because we know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope.
This is At the Core on American Family Radio.
Welcome to At the Core with Walker Wildman and Rick Green. I'm Rick Green, America's Constitution Coach. Thanks for joining me on this Tuesday afternoon. You get Walker Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and I'm with you Tuesdays and Thursdays. Hopefully you're joining us every day to get equipped, inspired, educated, all the things you need to make a difference, your family, your community, your neighborhood, your church, your state, and ultimately our nation. But it begins local, folks. You've got to take action right there where you live. Our goal is to equip you, give you the intellectual ammunition you need to engage with those around you and have some good civil discourse. Civil discourse prevents civil war. And that's our goal. Stop the civil war. Don't let this nation be destroyed. We're certainly not going to roll over and let the left have it. We're not going to give it to the Marxists. We're going to fight. We're going to stand firm on truth and hopefully renew truth in this country. We're down to about 2 years, 285 days, if my math is correct, before the July 4th, 2026 birthday of our nation, the 250th birthday of our nation and our Declaration of Independence. My goal is to spend that 2 years, 285 days, fighting to restore those principles and, Lord willing, have a celebration, like a big celebration on the 250th birthday instead of a funeral. For most nations, 250 years, that's it. Great nations, empires, all of it, they fall apart at 250. We've got a chance to restore this thing. There is a wake-up happening across the nation. The evil that has marched across the nation has actually been a blessing in disguise because it has shaken our fellow Americans out of their slumber. Not enough of them. I'm talking about so far maybe 1 or 2% that have been shaken out of their slumber. We need about 5%. In the founding era, you had 3% that fought, about 6 or 7% that did something. And I think 5% in this culture with the tools at our fingertips, the social media, all those things, an awakened 5%, engaged 5% could push the whole nation back in the right direction and restore liberty. So that's what we're after. That's why here on At the Core, we talk about those core issues. And I try to give you the good, the bad, and the ugly of what's been going on in the last few days or what the headlines are today. And at the same time, do a little constitutional education every chance I get. Throw some of that in there, some civics information so that you can pass that on to your kids and grandkids. As Ronald Reagan said, an informed citizenry is what we're after. We've got to know why that flag is worthy of being waved. It's not enough just to be patriotic. We have to understand what made this nation great and how to restore it. And so thank you. Thank you for listening, and thank you for being people of action that take the things that we talk about here and do something with it. All right, let's do some good, the bad, and the ugly. Take a look at a few of the headlines. First of all, just a general bad. Okay, this is not good for the country. A poll recently shows the divide. This is out of ChristianHeadlines.com. Divide between liberal pastors and conservative pews. Okay, now let me preface this by saying this is covering your mainline, quote unquote, church clergy. So this is not your Southern Baptist Convention, which has already got its own battle, obviously. So this is the even more liberal churches out there. So we're talking United Methodist, Evangelical Lutheran, American Baptist churches, Presbyterian Church, Episcopal Church, United Church of Christ, Disciples of Christ, those sorts of churches. Okay, so this is a large percentage of the country, but it's interesting to me, these numbers. Okay, so you got to envision this because it's hard to numbers. I know it's hard to picture. But they basically have said that 55%, more than half, of the clergy, the pastors, the leaders, call themselves liberal. Now, in this culture, if you're a pastor, you're a leader, okay, so you got to be at least a little bit learned. You got to be reading something out there. You got to know that when we say liberal today, that doesn't mean classical liberal, you're for freedom and liberty. That means liberal, you're for LGBTQ stuff. You're for, allowing the carving up of children. You're for indoctrinating and being anti-American and everything. You're for, the church not being salt and light, but instead being a social club where everybody pats each other on the back and defines love as approving and celebrating anything and everything, which is, of course, not love. That's hate. You hate someone if you celebrate something that's going to destroy them. At any rate, I'm shocked that 55% of clergy say they're liberal. 22% say they're moderate. So I mean, we're down to 22% that say they're conservative. And then you flip that to the pews. Okay, that's in the pulpit. Now in the pews, only 20% of the people in the pews describe themselves as liberal. 31% say they're moderate, and 45% conservative. So almost an exact opposite of what's coming out of the pulpit. So I guess that's good and bad, right? It's bad because, man, if that's the leadership of the church or the mainline churches, then they're going to be constantly hammering away every Sunday, picking and choosing scripture, twisting it to fit a liberal agenda. All the things we know happens. But the good news is that so far they have not been able to get those numbers reflected in the pew. That most of, well, not most, 45%, almost half, are holding out, still calling themselves conservative, 31% calling themselves moderate, and only 20% calling themselves liberal of those in the pews. So I just thought that headline and that survey was very interesting. Now, again, that's your more liberal churches. I would love to see those same surveys with your evangelical churches and your Southern Baptist churches, and hopefully those numbers would be far better. But folks, be honest with yourselves. You got to know the seminaries are churning out leftist pastors, and that includes what we used to think were conservative seminaries. It's bad out there. I'm telling you, it's bad. That's why teaching biblical citizenship is so important. You need to be getting the people in your church together and either, going to your pastor and saying, hey, we want biblical perspective on all the issues of the day, and we can do this biblical citizenship class in 8 weeks. You don't even have to preach it from the pulpit, even though you should be. We'll do this on, Sunday afternoons or Sunday nights or Monday nights or whatever, and it'll give us a chance to say, here's what the Bible says about how to treat our neighbor. Here's what the Bible says about what government should look like. That is critical right now, folks. You need to be doing that in your church and encouraging your pastor to attend one of our Liberty Pastor events where they're going to be around other pastors from across the country that want to have a biblical perspective on all the big issues of the day. And so you can check out libertypastors.com if you want to send your pastor to one of those. I'm headed to another one in, where are we going? Hershey, Pennsylvania. I'm going to get me some chocolate while I'm there. Have you ever been, if you've never been to Hershey, it's pretty remarkable. We did this years and years ago. I know I'm getting off on a rabbit trail here. I'm kind of like squirrel, I don't know. It's anyway. I could not believe how much chocolate was available. Every ride, every store, everywhere you went, there was chocolate. It was chocolate heaven. I'm just telling you. But of course, Hershey went woke, and so I'm not encouraging you to go spend time at the theme park. But we are bringing pastors in to this, cool resort there and giving them a chance to get a little respite with their spouse and at the same time hear from some fantastic speakers and learn a lot about how to be a Liberty pastor. So anyway, check that out at libertypastors.com. Encourage your pastor to go. It may already be full. I don't even know. But I know we had a great crowd in Michigan last week, and we did another one in Virginia a couple of weeks ago. So just know there's a concentrated effort to get churches involved, get pastors involved, but you are the one that has to start it sometimes in your church, in your community. So don't let these numbers of the mainline churches, which, again, a lot of people leaving those mainline churches, finding churches that will actually preach the whole counsel of God, that will actually preach the entire Bible and not leave things off limits, as my friend Paul Blair says, the pastor that started Liberty Pastors. He says to his fellow pastors all the time, what part of your life is Jesus not Lord over? Because that's the only part you shouldn't be preaching about. And he's exactly right, and it applies to us as well as individual believers. Anyway, interesting poll there, a little bit of good, bad, and ugly all wrapped up into one. Okay, this is bad, but, again, it's the shaking people out of their slumber. Target is closing 9 stores in 4 Democrat-led states, citing, quote, organized retail crime. I have to digest that for a minute. Just the headline itself. First of all, have to not try to not chuckle. You know, there's that proverb about not enjoying when your enemy is faltering. But Target has been the enemy to all that is good in America for a long time. Okay, they've been woke and liberal and pushing a leftist agenda and child destruction. They're horrible. Do not spend a penny with Target. But even Target is realizing that the left-wing policies in these 4 Democrat, shall I say, left-wing-led states has created chaos. I mean, these blue cities where they are literally saying, go ahead and steal up to $900 and we're not going to bother you. They've created this, quote, organized retail crime. And so the 4 states are New York, Washington State, California, and Oregon. So your 3 left coast states and then New York. And Target's saying, man, it's just so bad. We've tried. We've tried to stop theft at these stores, and we cannot do it. This is the crumbling of a culture, folks. This is definitely a nation in decline, as you've heard a lot of the presidential candidates say. It cannot continue like this. But hopefully, if enough companies, and Target's not the first. We saw some Dick's Sporting Goods closing. We saw some Walmarts closing. We've seen other retail chains pulling out of Portland and Seattle and these areas where they defunded the police, encouraged mayhem. Leftism destroys everything it touches, and that's what's happening in what were once great cities, and even the left-wing businesses are pulling out. Okay, one other headline in our final couple of minutes before we go to break, and then, of course, we'll try to get to the phones in the second segment, if not for sure in the third segment. But there's just so much to say about this appointment of a United States senator out of California. Now, Feinstein was, as bad as it gets, right? I mean, that is not going to be a low. It's a very low bar. Let's put it that way. You could throw a dart at a board and appoint whoever it lands on and probably do better than Feinstein. But in this case, I don't think that's what's going to happen, because as liberal Democrats, leftists like Gavin Newsom and Joe Biden like to do, they don't choose their running mates or their appointees based on qualifications. They choose based on, they're racist. They're absolute racist and sexist, and therefore they choose based on the color of your skin and your sexual organs. So the only thing that mattered to Gavin Newsom was that a person had the right color of skin and the right sex organs. And that's what was important in the appointment. Just like Joe Biden, he chose his vice presidential running mate based on color of skin and sex organs. Now, we used to call that racist and sexist. If you said to me that you were appointing me to something because I'm a white male, I would be offended. I'd be like, wait a minute, I don't want a job because of the color of my skin or my sex organs. I want a job because I'm the best qualified for the job. Not so with the left. That's how Kamala Harris got her job, simply the color of her skin and because she was a woman. Exact same thing. Gavin Newsom said, number one thing, essentially, all that matters, got to be a black woman. Got to be a black woman, all right? And every black woman in America should be absolutely offended by this, because this essentially means that what's most important in your life is your color of skin and your sex organs. That is bad. That is not the way we're supposed to go. MLK, I know I've said it a million times on this program, we ought to be treated based on the content of our character, not the color of our skin. But this lady out of California, who's actually out of Maryland, she's not even in California, she runs the Emily's List. She's one of the most pro-abortion people on the planet. She's a political hack, an absolute leftist political hack, and she is now going to be in the United States Senate. Unreal. Thank you, California, for putting Gavin Newsom in a position to be able to appoint this lady. It's just, and she's a lesbian too, so she checks 3 boxes for the left. Black lesbian woman. Only other person they could have found that might have met that, was the president's press secretary. This is insane, folks. I mean, this is how you end up with absolute chaos and people that can't do the job, because you're not judging them based on content of the character. You're judging them based on color, skin, sexual preferences, and their sexual organs. Bad news for California and the United States Senate. All right, quick break. Phones when we get back, 888-589-8840. You're listening to At the Core.
Peter Peter said to Jesus, "Lord, what about this man?" My name is Abraham Hamilton III, and this is the Hamilton Minute. At the climax of the account, when Jesus restored Peter's personal relationship with him and Peter's call to ministry, he saw John following them. Jesus had just predicted that Peter would give his life for the gospel when Peter said, "What about John, Lord?" Jesus responded, "What does he have to do with your calling? You follow me." With those words, Jesus hit a consistent flaw of the human condition. We derive value and self-worth by comparing ourselves to other people. Your ups, your downs, your failures, your victories were never meant to be compared to other people. We have been called to serve an audience of one. The only approval you need is his.
Listen each weekday from 5 to 6 p.m. Central for the Hamilton Corner with Abraham Hamilton III, Public Policy Analyst for the American Family Association.
This is Raising Godly Girls Minute with Patty Garibay of American Heritage Girls.
Any family who has struggled with mental health challenges knows the stigma of shame. Sadly, our culture, while beginning to recognize the mental health crisis happening, doesn't quite know how to respond in grace. But God does. In the New Testament, Mary Magdalene knew shame closely. During that time, anyone who struggled with mental health was quickly marginalized and shunned. But Jesus didn't reject her. In fact, Jesus offered her exhausted mind shalom, a healing peace. If a member of your family is going through mental illness, don't despair. Shame is not coming from the Lord, rather from the enemy. As you seek help and counseling, know that God's heart desires complete wellness for your family. Pray against shame creeping in and for shalom to heal along the way.
Want to learn more? Read about empowering girls through the love of God at raisinggodlygirls.com.
Hey friends, it's Jessica Peck, Dr. Nurse Mama, as your 1-minute parenting coach. Have you ever asked your kid, "How was your day?" and gotten a shoulder shrug with the answer, "Fine"? We are conditioned as a society to respond that we are fine when someone asks us how we are doing. Simply changing the wording could make all the difference in the world. Next time your kid comes home from school, try, "Tell me about your day," instead of "How was your day?" But choose your timing. Kids need time to decompress when they get home. Give them grace and space. Kids at bedtime are most likely to be willing to give you the War and Peace length version of their day. Don't give up. Be consistent. And most of all, keep trying. I'll see you on the Dr. Nurse Mama radio show right here on American Family Radio.
This is At the Core on American Family Radio with your host, Rick Green.
Welcome back to At the Core with Walker Wildman and Rick Green. I'm Rick Green, America's Constitution Coach. Thanks for staying with me on this Tuesday. Phone number is 888-589-8840. Let me know what you think. 888-589-8840. Do you think we should be racist in America? Is it good to judge people based on the color of their skin? Should we appoint people based on the color of their skin? Should we appoint someone just because they're a woman or a man, or maybe they don't know what they are? Or should we appoint someone based on who they like to have sex with? Because that's essentially what Gavin Newsom just did. He said, I got to find somebody with they got to have the right color skin. They gotta have the right sex organs, and they gotta have the right sexual preferences, and therefore they are qualified based on those things to serve in the United States Senate. So they're now one of the 100 most powerful people in the United States because of those three things. Is that good? I'm just curious what you think. From my perspective, that means you are a misogynist, racist. I don't know what the right term is for giving preference to people based on their sexual proclivities, but this is not good in my opinion. But maybe you disagree, and I'd love to hear from you if that's the case. 888-589-8840. A couple more of these headlines. This whole more than a headline. This fight in the Congress, both over the spending and the speaker situation. Now, I mean, it's a mess, right? But here's the thing. I mean, Chip Roy said it right from the very beginning. No border control, no funding. If you don't close the border, you don't get money. I mean, that's what they should be saying, period. Like, there should be, it should be a very simple conversation. No security, no funding. and just respond with that every time they say, yeah, but what about? And we need, 10 days, or we need it for 45. No security, no funding. Draw the line in the sand. Anyone that's been to the border or watched even 10 minutes of video. I mean, just go watch Elon Musk's video. I mean, thank you, Elon, for bringing attention to this to millions of people that didn't know who to believe and perhaps bought the lie that, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and Secretary Mayorkas and others have perpetrated, the lie that the border is secure, that we have this under control. That's an absolute lie. That's not just, that is an evil lie, because they're saying it while they know that children are being raped, that women are being raped, that children are being sold into sex trafficking, that people are dying from fentanyl, that families' lives are being ruined as they're sold out to the cartels, that the cartels have operational control of our own border, that we have more than 10,000 a day coming across the border, many of them with disease, many of them very clearly gang members and hardened criminals. I mean, Elon Musk was shocked to find, this one guy with the teardrop tattoos, meaning he had murdered people and all this, and that we're letting these people into our nation. We're literally taking them in, we're giving them money and phones, and then housing them in fancy hotels all over the country. It's insane. I mean, you would think that that's some dystopian novel or movie that would never happen. No nation would be that dumb. No nation would be, certainly no great nation, would be so foolish and just, I mean, I don't have nice words for this. Stupid. No nation would be so stupid that they would be willing to allow what's going to turn out to be about 10 million people to come into their nation with disease, with criminal records, with absolute, no job, they're literally going to become completely dependent upon the government, and then try to make everybody feel good about that, because mixed in with those people are some great families. There's some folks, listen, there's some wonderful Christian families seeking a better life for their family. They're leaving nations that have been destroyed by socialism, and now the socialists in America want them here, hoping to turn us into the same disaster. And these families are being used by the Marxists that want to destroy America. This is not, don't kid yourself. This is not just a political ploy for, Democrat votes. This is a concentrated effort to bring America to its knees, to destroy the greatest nation in the history of the world. This is a worldwide effort. There are people all over the world that hate you and hate us as a nation. And unfortunately, there are people here in this nation that hate you and hate our nation. They are sold out to Marxism and socialism, and they want to destroy the old America, and they want to create a new socialist states of America. And this is a major, major part of how they're going to do it. And so this whole border disaster is on display for the world. I mean, the Republicans in Congress have everything they need to stand their ground. Just pick this one issue and say, until this one's solved, we're doing nothing else. The government will shut down. Why not let the government shut down? I mean, what is this government if it cannot seal the border and protect us at the border? What's the point in having a federal government? Shut it down. Defund it. Everybody's, but people won't get their checks. Good. Let them feel the pain of failed leadership in Washington, D.C., and force the phone calls and the picketing and let the masses show up and have little shanty towns all over the U.S. Capitol, just like they did, what was it, Hoover? The Hoovervilles that they had back in, what was that, 20s, 30s, whatever. Anyway, I mean, that's what needs to happen. You're going to have to force. This administration is never going to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. They will sometimes do the right thing because of political pressure and being forced to do so. And this humanitarian crisis, disaster, tragedy caused by the Biden administration is only going to be stopped when the political pressure is felt. Greg Abbott needs to feel the political pressure. He still has not sealed the Texas border. So even where we made attempts and razor wire, the Border Patrol goes in and cuts that. So you're going to have to take operational control of the Texas border as Texas and say no. You're going to have to, as Texas, fight the cartels. You're going to have to, as Texas, take the people that are coming across the border and physically place them back across the river and over on to Mexico's border. That's the only way this thing's going to stop. I was glad to see Ron DeSantis say in an interview, I think yesterday, maybe day before yesterday, that absolutely Texas has the right to do that and should do that if the federal government's not going to do it. He said, if he's elected, he will make sure that the federal government steps in and finally does its job with Border Patrol and under the Constitution. It is the federal government's responsibility. Article 4, Section 4 gives it to the feds, but Article 1, Section 10 says the states can do it if the feds aren't doing their job. If there's an emergency like we're dealing with now, literally an invasion. If you don't think this is an invasion, my goodness, what in the world does it have to? How bad does it have to get? I mean, New York is crippled right now and crying like little babies because of 10,000 a month. So how do you think Texas is doing with more than 10,000 a day? If that's not an invasion, I mean, come on, look at New York. Look at these other cities that are falling apart from a fraction of what we get in Texas. This is absolutely an invasion and should be repelled. So Greg Abbott needs to do it. I mean, just come on, get it done. Stop talking about it. Stop saying you're doing it, and stop taking these little baby steps and do the big things necessary to seal the border. And let Joe Biden sue you. Make them come down and physically prevent us from sealing the border. That's what needs to happen. And I don't believe they'll do it. If they do, call their bluff on this thing and get it back into the courts. Get this thing back to the Supreme Court. Let's revisit Arizona v. U.S., which is the case from like 1986 or something. I can't remember the year, where, the Supreme Court said that Arizona could not have operational control of the border. It was a federal issue. And Scalia, in his dissent, said that's wrong. The state should be able to do this. I think this Supreme Court would rule in our favor on this. And, obviously it shouldn't be, I say this all the time, but shouldn't be the Supreme Court making these decisions. This should be for the legislatures to decide. But, I think we would win at the court as well. And unfortunately, Greg Abbott is he comes from the court world, right? So he was a district judge forever. Then he was a Supreme Court justice. Then he was attorney general. And then he was governor. So he just can't bring himself to buck a Supreme Court decision. He just can't do it. He's just brainwashed in all those years of being in the legal cabal of the big law firms and feeling like he was a god on the bench. That's how I'm telling you, that's how these people think. If they've been on the bench that long, they think they are the end-all be-all, and therefore they think the Supreme Court is the end-all be-all, and they just can't bring themselves, even as governor, where he actually has the power to overrule these things and to do what needs to be done. He just hasn't been able to snap out of that judicial mindset. So the political pressure is what it'll take. He is a politician. He's really good at jumping out in front of the parade so that he looks like he's leading. And that's the typical politician. And as long as we're pushing and building the parade, fine. Let him jump out front and be the one that gets all the credit when it's all said and done. I don't care about that. He did that with other issues in Texas that needed to be done, and he's doing it right now with school choice. Great, praise God. He's on the right side of that one finally and pushing for it. Let's get it done. But on the border, I'm just sick and tired of the talk and not enough action. It's got to be done. Lives are being ruined every single day. So back to Congress and the speaker fight. Chip Roy has said, for months, no security, no funding. That's where they need to hold the line. Now, I'm just going to be honest. I don't know enough about the inside baseball of these particular negotiations where it was, they were trying to get a temporary 30-day deal, and it was supposedly a conservative version of the continuing resolutions and an 8% cut on certain things. I mean, that's what the speaker is saying that it was. And some of my friends that are, conservative members of the legislature said it was a good deal. And then others of my friends that are conservative members of the legislature said, no, it's not a good deal because it still, is doing a bunch of these things that we shouldn't be doing, and it doesn't take care of the border. And so that's why we ended up with the the House not doing it, so the Republicans not doing it. 21, I think, said no, and so that's why Speaker McCarthy went over and made a deal with the Democrats, and it was a worse deal, but it got something out, and they kept the government open. Well, I don't know enough about the details, but I tend to side with those who would say, no, 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 no. We're not going to let you do it. And so shut the government down. Everybody's always worried about the political ramifications of a shutdown. And ever since Newt Gingrich and the perception was that he was the incalcitrant one, not Bill Clinton, and that the Republicans, lost seats because of it. And all. And that's been 30 years ago. I err on the side of playing hardball. I think they should shut it down. I think they should say, let's feel the pain. And let's the rest of the country feel the pain that Texas is feeling because of the border, and let's shut it down until we get security at the border. That's where I would come down on it. Again, I got friends on both sides in Congress, and now they're going to have a massive fight over vacating the speaker because of the deal that he made with the Democrats. I don't have a lot of hope that that's going to go anywhere. I get why Matt Gaetz is doing it. I think they're holding the speaker's feet to the fire for the promises that were made back in January in order for him to get the speakership. But again, I just don't know enough about the inside baseball. But if it looked like I thought I saw today that Chip Roy said he was going to vote no on this vacating of the chair. So if that's the case, there's probably a lot of other conservatives that are going to vote no, and it's probably not going to happen. I guess they only got to have 5 or 6 if all the Democrats did the same thing. But then what do they get, right? I mean, like, what's the back? So if for the Democrats to do it, they got to know we're probably going to end up with a more conservative speaker. So I just don't think they're gonna go for it. They probably have McCarthy. The Democrats probably have McCarthy right where they want him. And so yeah, it's just going to be ugly, man. This is not good. But this is why in 2024 we need to get a majority in the Senate that will give us more negotiating power on these kinds of things, and then obviously a president that will end the nonsense, because there is a lot of nonsense. Okay, let's get to the phones. I think we're going to go to Jerry first. He's in New Mexico. If you want to call in, 888-589-8840. That's 888-589-8840. Jerry in New Mexico. All I saw was disagrees with Rick, which means I love taking your phone call. Go for it, man.
Well, Rick, thank you for taking my phone call, okay? I need to disagree with you on something, and it's maybe just a matter of verbiage, and it's not semantics, because words mean different in English than they do in Spanish. I have a home in El Paso. I live down there approximately 6 months out of the year. Okay, the people need to do the difference between closing the border and securing the border. There's a big difference.
Yes, no, you're right. You're right.
Okay. Let me explain. Because there's a lot of commerce that comes through that border.
Yeah.
And if you want to shut down the United States and bring it to its knees.
No. I think you're right. No. I get what you're saying, Jerry. Yeah, 100% agree. 100% agree. And maybe I said it wrong. Absolutely. It's secure the border. When I say close the border, that's what I mean. But you're exactly right. Obviously, the commerce needs to come across. And not only the commerce, Jerry, immigration needs to happen. We need immigration in this country. It just needs to be legal immigration so that you know who's coming into our nation, and you are actually preventing disease, you're preventing criminals, you're preventing people that don't have jobs when they come here. We need to make it 1,000 times easier to get into America legally, because we need that good legal immigration. But it's got to be 1,000 times harder to get in illegally, and you can only do that if you secure the border. But you're absolutely right. When I say close the border, I mean secure the border, and I should be more careful with my language. We don't want a closed border. We're not isolationist. We're not, suggesting that no one should get in or out or any of that. We need that free flow of commerce, but it needs to be done in a rational way. Other nations do this all over the world. Why can't we do it, right? And we know we can. We have the money, we have the power, we have the manpower, we have the technology. It's not a matter of can we do it. It's the political will to do it. Phone number 888-589-8840. Quick break, 888-589-8840. I'm Rick Green. You're listening to At the Core.
AFR programming is now available on Alexa.
You're joking, right?
Nope, not joking.
Seriously?
Yep, this is not a drill.
Wait a minute. No way.
There's a way, the Alexa way. So if you just happen to miss your favorite shows, no worries. You can now listen to each podcast with Alexa. It's simple and it's free. Just visit afr.net/apps and click Alexa. We're not joking. Can we trust the Bible?
He says, we saw this, and that sets the Bible apart from almost everything else in the ancient world and its religious pantheon of gods and goddesses.
The God Who Speaks, the important documentary from the American Family Association, is now available to watch for free on AFA's brand new streaming platform. Go to thegodwhospeaks.org to watch this award-winning film today. thegodwhospeaks.org.
The following is not an actor, but a real-life story from Trinity Debt Management.
I had numerous credit cards, and I was struggling with paying them off.
If you're in debt and you need help, call Trinity at 1-800-788-1813 to talk to a certified counselor.
I had heard about Trinity, so I made the call. They took care of all of my credit cards, and now I am completely debt-free.
Trinity will consolidate your accounts into one easy-to-manage monthly payment, put a stop to late fees and over-limit charges, reduce your interest, and possibly improve your credit score. You'll save thousands.
The people at Trinity are very friendly. They will do whatever you need them to do in order for you to feel better about being in a very difficult place.
If your debt has you down, call Trinity at 1-800-788-1813.
My name is Ann, and I'm debt-free for keeps.
1-800-788-1813.
Now some good news from American Family Radio. For years, scientists and archaeologists have made discoveries consistent with claims in the Bible. In 1961, an archaeological dig revealed evidence of Pontius Pilate. In 1993, and again in 2019, evidence was found to support the existence of King David. In 2018, a Rockefeller University genetic study found that all human life descended from one genetic pair. Archaeologists have been able to corroborate elements of the New Testament story of Jesus, and first-century historians Tacitus and Josephus referred to Jesus in their writings. The dramatic gospel accounts of Jesus' horrible suffering, crucifixion, and resurrection from death still stand up against expert scrutiny. In light of historic confirmations, many are finding it harder to doubt Jesus' claims, and people honestly searching for truth are coming to believe in Jesus. For more information, ask a Christian or read the Bible, an encouragement from the American Family Association.
This is At the Core on American Family Radio with your host, Rick Green.
Welcome back to At the Core with Walker Wildman and Rick Green. I'm Rick Green, America's Constitution Coach. Thanks for staying with me this afternoon. A couple more headlines, then we'll get back to the phones. 888-589-8840 if you would like to call in. I just got to comment on this because I can't help it. You know, if you listen to the program, I'm a big fan of debate. I believe civil discourse prevents civil war. The more you can have presidential candidates debate the issues, it educates the American people. I don't care if Trump is ahead by 100 points, right? Which would be hard to do, but he's ahead by 40. Some people say, some polling says, in Iowa not so much, but nationally, I mean, the polls are pretty conclusive that he's way ahead. I don't care. I think you still have the debates. I think he should be competing in the debates. He should be there to answer his record. He should be there to advocate for what he's going to do in a second term. I just think these are an important part of our political process in America and how we choose president. So I've spoken out against the fact that Trump has not been in the debates. I think he should have been. I understand his reasons. I understand the tactical reasons. It makes sense for his campaign, but it's bad for the country. Well, today, the Trump campaign advisors are saying that the third Republican debate should be canceled. They're actually asking the RNC to not even have a debate, to literally cancel the presidential debates from now. There's no. This is like the climate hoax, people. There's no debate. The science is settled. Everyone must obey what we tell you the science is. That's what this feels like to me when you say the debate's over, no debate, even though the first ballots for president aren't going to be cast for another 3 months. we think no more debating should be allowed. We're not going to have the convention where you make the final decision on who the presidential nominee is going to be for 9 months, and yet no more debate. I just can't get on board with this. I am telling you, the Trump campaign people have made so many mistakes and not mistakes in terms of of course his polling's going up, and they look like geniuses because he's winning by so much. But the things that they are doing are tearing down the system. They're hurting the American electoral process just so that their guy can have more of an advantage. And I have to say it every time, otherwise I'm going to get all kinds of hate mail, which I don't care about. But listen, Trump's fourth on my entire best presidents list. Okay, he's the only people ahead of him are George Washington, Abraham Lincoln, and Calvin Coolidge. So listen, I think Trump did fantastic in his first term. I very well may be, definitely if he's the nominee, I'm going to be all in supporting him to get a second term. I've always wanted him to have a second term so that he could be the bull in the china closet, scorched earth, all that. But this business of demonizing Ron DeSantis, lying about Ron DeSantis, this business of not even wanting debates, this is bad, folks. I mean, this is just bad, and I don't mind saying it. So all you folks that are think that anytime anybody says anything against Donald Trump or his team is somehow the enemy, and try and call me a rhino. Okay, if I'm a rhino, we're in trouble. I just want a good election process. I want good debates. I want people to be held accountable. I want Donald Trump to be the best nominee possible on the ballot next November if he's going to be the nominee. And I know that the primary helps to make that happen. So anyway, this headline, I had to rant a little bit about it, them trying to cancel these Republican debates. Just foolish, absolutely foolish. Now listen, I think the last debate, in my opinion, was a disaster. I mean, the Fox did a terrible job. First of all, they had 2 of the 3 moderators. You could barely understand them. One with his English or whatever accent, the other with the Spanish accent. I mean, get people that speak English clearly to be asking the questions, and then don't allow for a free-for-all where 7 candidates are screaming at each other all on open mics. They did it on purpose. They did it to make them look like a bunch of fools. They should have had the mics off unless you were called upon to speak. The candidates themselves, I mean, they should have, again, DeSantis had an opportunity. He should have just stood there and shook his head while they're screaming at each other. And then when he finally gets called upon and everybody else shuts up, he could have said, this is silly. Y'all are treating us like children. We're not children. We need to be debating the issues, having civil discourse, not talking over each other. And granted, some would have said that he would look like he was, being a school teacher talking down to everybody. But I just think it was crazy the way that they did it. I did think DeSantis and Vivek did very, very well, both of them. I thought Nikki Haley had some good points, but also she and Chris Christie, and the way that they speak to Vivek to me is silly. But anyway, all that to say, do not jump on board this thing. If you're a sold-out Trump supporter, if you got a MAGA hat and MAGA clothes and MAGA, truck and everything else, I love you. You're my people. But don't buy into this, no debates allowed and all that nonsense. We need the debates. It's good for the American people. All right. Had to mention that. Let's get back to the phones. 888-589-8840. Carlos in the great state of Texas is up next. Carlos in Texas. Go ahead, man.
Hey, brother, how you doing? I just want to comment about the border, the immigration. I'm an immigrant.
Yeah.
And let me tell you that a lot of people know that this country, it's a country of a lot of immigrants, good immigrants.
That's right.
I become a legal citizen when the only amnesty that happened in this country was with Mr. Reagan.
Reagan in 86, yeah.
And all the, yes, in 86. So all the Democrats and try to fool all the Spanish and all the immigrants that they say that they help, they're not helping them. They're not helping them because 95% of those people that come in from there, they don't come here to work. They come in here to take. They are takers, not givers. The good immigrants, when we came at that time, we give to this country. Even we serve in this country.
Amen.
That's the type of immigrant we need here. When we're talking about immigrants, we're not generalize. We are hardworking people, and you know that.
Yeah.
So these people, they come here, they don't want to work. I was telling the guy who answered the phone, and I say, if you check, all these people has the best iPhone. Everybody has an iPhone, but nobody have money. Not even knows that we are here, have that. When they come in here, they asking for apartment, they want a car, they want everything. They was complaining in New York because I come from New York. I lived 35 years in New York. They complaining about the hotel that they giving them there. When we came here, we have nothing.
Yeah.
We got to take a bus. We got to walk. We got to do a lot of things. We have to make our way up to get whatever we have here.
Amen. Amen, brother. Well, I couldn't agree with you more, Carlos. I think that's a fantastic call because it actually makes the point. You know, we need legal immigration. We need people that want to be here, that want to assimilate, just like Carlos, that want to be Americans and live the American dream and experience American exceptionalism and be a part of our free market capitalistic system, earning their way, not just looking for handouts. And listen, we are a nation of immigrants. It is absolutely true. It's telling the truth about that whole story is an important thing for us to do. It's ironically, I have a good friend also named Carlos. I don't know what's the deal with Carlos, but Carlos Pons, my good buddy from Florida, who came here from Cuba and literally had to try 3 times to finally get here. I mean, no kidding, rode his way here, truly escaping communism. And he's a police officer in Florida, and just an incredible guy, great family guy, wonderful son. He and his wife Tracy helped to lead the homeschool organization in Florida, and they're just absolute patriots. I mean, I'm telling you, with tears in his eyes, he passionately describes what the American dream is all about. That's the kind of immigration you want, folks. That's the people you want, and not the ones that are coming here either to create mayhem and be part of the problem, or to just live off of your hard work, off of the tax dollars. And just like Carlos is saying, they're literally complaining about a hotel room they're being given. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy, and only a nation in decline would invite this and encourage this and continue to allow this to happen. Okay, let's head over to Arkansas. We got Tony calling in from Arkansas. Tony, thanks for calling in, man. Go Hogs, go.
Hey,
You're
Rick,
up next.
Man. Hey, Rick, it's good talking to you, and I just got a couple things real quick because I know I got a few seconds here. But one, I agree with what you're saying about shutting down the government. And number two, I wonder if you heard about the national parks being invaded. Biden's wanting to build housing for immigrants, and I'm here in Arkansas, so we're kind of a national park. And so I'm just going to jump off the air and hear your comments.
Yeah, man, it's not only that. Great call, Tony. Thank you. It's not only that. I just saw today, Chicago Airport, O'Hare, they're actually housing illegal immigrants at the airport. I mean, I'm telling you, folks, this creates absolute chaos, what they're doing. It is destroying any semblance of a functioning society. It'll eventually get to that point. You can't, 10 million. Well, think about even just last month. Just last month, we had over 300,000 that we know about. That's not even the gotaways. 300,000. I mean, you're getting to the level of many of our small states. You're talking about an entire small state every month coming across the border. Just let that sink in for a minute. That's the numbers we're talking about here. It radically changes things. Economically, it changes things. Politically, it changes things. Just physically, where to house people and what to do with people. It's an absolute disaster, and it was invited by Joe Biden. He advertised to the world that our border was open. Come on in. And now this is what we're dealing with. I saw a great video the other night. I had to laugh. I think it was staged. I don't know. It may have not been, but these guys walk up with 3 what was supposedly illegal immigrants to this fellas who's watering his lawn, and he's got a Joe Biden shirt on, and they said, hey, we your president opened the border so that we could get across. We need a place to stay, and so we're going to stay at your house. And the guy's like, no, you're not staying at my house. But you get the point, right? I mean, all of these people, like these mayors of these blue cities that are crying like little babies now, they created the problem. They pushed for sanctuary cities. They pushed for a president that would open the border. They asked for this. The rest of us have been dealing with the pain in Texas and Arizona. And now they're finally having to deal with some of the pain and live with the consequences of their actions. So very, very interesting. Okay, just going right down the line here. We got Virginia calling in from Texas. I know that's confusing. It's not Texas calling in from Virginia. It's Virginia calling in from Texas. Virginia, it's all yours. Go ahead.
It's Virginia. Well, I was concerned about the government shutdown, but we heard the news media talking about, there's not going to be nutrition for our children. Daycare would have to be shut down, and people believed that. They didn't say why the Republicans weren't voting for this to go through, because we're sending millions of money to other countries and other causes and forgetting our own people here at home. That's why they were reluctant to vote for this, to keep the government open.
Yeah, no, Virginia, you're right. I mean, it's when people say, yeah, but what about this person not getting a check or whatever? Listen, we can't take care of our own because we're sending, $100 billion over to Ukraine. We're taking care of everybody else instead of taking care of ourselves. And listen, we're a benevolent nation. That's a good thing. I mean, I'm not against all foreign, investments, aid, those sorts of things. I mean, we are placed in a position of being the world's only superpower. There was a time very recently when we had the ability to do those things. But at this point, we don't. At this point, it's one of those things where, our family's very much into self-defense and community, preparedness, and we do, rescue missions and all kinds of stuff. But our motto is always, we're not gonna burn down our house to save yours. We're not gonna allow our house to be burned down while we're out there trying to help somebody else. You got to have your priorities. And for me, my family is the priority. I'm going to take care of them first, and then I'm going to help the neighbors. It's just like when you're on the airplane, and hopefully you're not foolish enough to be wearing a mask. But if you have to put the actual oxygen mask on, they always tell you put it on yourself first, and then you help other people. Because if you pass out, you're not going to be any help to other people. Well, as a nation, we're passing out because we're busy putting the oxygen mask on everybody else without actually putting it on ourselves. And it's time to make sure that we make our own nation strong again. Right now, all we're doing is making our nation weak. We're giving up our sovereignty. We're giving up our power. We're giving up our choices. It's just like personally, when you get into big debt, you limit your choices. When you get into big debt, you cannot help other people. You're too busy trying to survive and not able to serve and bless other people. Well, as a nation, we're now in that position. We've made so many bad decisions, and we're in such a weak position now that we're unable to help the rest of the world. But instead of making the decision to say, okay, we got to pull back from helping the rest of the world so that we can take care of ourselves, these people want to continue to send our money around the world and not help ourselves, not solve the problems here in America, not actually take care of our own or control our own border. Here we are putting all this money into securing Ukraine's border and not securing our own border, so the threat continues to come across. Folks, that's what happens when you don't have biblical wisdom. Right now, we are ruled by a bunch of brambles. The Judges 9 parable where the fig won't lead, the vine won't lead, so they get led by the thorn bushes. We're being led by a bunch of thorn bushes that do not have biblical wisdom. To turn this thing around, we raise up biblical citizens. We raise up biblical leaders that restore that wisdom. I'm Rick Green, America's Constitution Coach. You've been listening to At the Core with Walker Wildman and Rick Green.
The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast may not necessarily reflect those of the American Family Association or